Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the show. I would like to extend my thank you to CREDENT TV for giving me this opportunity to speak with all of you this evening. I'll be guiding my students about how to prepare for physics for board examination grade 12. I'm sure students have lots of worries, lots of anxieties about the examination. But please believe me, physics is not a very hard nut to crack. It's definitely a very interesting, related to day-to-day life, and it will certainly boost up your confidence and morale. So once again, students, let us start with some lovely tips on how to crack grade 12 physics, and that too with lots of confidence. My first and foremost point will be to go through the curriculum. I'm sure, students, you are absolutely aware about the CBSE curriculum. The revised curriculum has been issued by CBSE. The earlier curriculum was also there on the CBSE site. So there are two curriculums at the moment, the older version and the new version. Please go through the new version. And in case you are going through the older version, never mind. You can check out that, but there are a lot of topics which have been deleted from CBSE exclusively for this year. That is for students taking the examination in the year 2021. So I'm sure you're aware about all the topics in your course, including the topics that have been deleted from CBSE. CBSE has very clearly indicated that these topics will not be asked as a part of the examination, but never mind, you have to still go through these topics. They are connected with either the prior topics of the chapter or the topics which are followed by this. So you have to do these topics very religiously. My humble request to all of you will be to be very aware of the fact that curriculum is the Bible for all of you. I'm sure you're following strictly NCERT books. NCERT Part 1 and Part 2, published by, of course, NCERT publication. And this book is certainly going to give you a topic-wise insight into each and every topic. Go through very carefully, read the lines, see the diagrams, see all the solved numericals, which are solved absolutely, and unsolved exercises in the end as well. CBSE papers are always based on NCERT books. I'm sure all my children are doing it very, very religiously. There should be no doubt about it. I'm sure you have started preparing your notes also. This year has been very, very unusual, very unprecedented times due to COVID, and you were all locked in your homes. Online classes were there, but slowly and gradually, now the times have changed. Parents have started sending their children. The governments have allowed children to go to the schools. They are moving towards school in very, very smaller groups, I'm sure, keeping in mind the social distancing norms, the COVID guidelines, and they are clarifying their doubts with the teachers. Whether in the offline mode or in the online mode, please trust your teachers. Do trust, do have faith in your teachers. They will always guide you for the right. Ask them, clarify your doubts, speak with them, have lots of faith and confidence in them. I'm sure you're aware of the sample papers also issued by the CBSE. The blueprint and the sample paper have to be definitely gone through. There is no escape from this. See that what exactly is the pattern of the examination for this year. The number of questions for this year will be 33. Your question paper will be divided into 5 segments, 5 sections. Section A will have short questions of 1 mark each, followed by section 2 or section B. Section B is a case study base, which is a recent addition to the CBSE papers. It will be certainly interesting but thought-provoking. So please do practice case study questions. There are 2 questions of 4 marks each. Moving on to section C, section D and section E, you have 2 mark, 3 mark and 5 mark questions. There are no overall choices in the question paper, as you are aware, but yes, there are internal choices. CBSE has made sure that you get around 33% choices in the entire question paper. And I'm sure that is certainly a very, very good step taken forward by CBSE. CBSE has been very, very thoughtful, giving you a lot of time to prepare well for your CBSE examination, which will be conducted in the month of May now. You have around 3 months to prepare, and I'm sure for 5 subjects, or for some of you, maybe a 6th subject, the time is not less. Besides your practical, you will be also preparing for your theory examination. When you talk about the subject physics, you have to be very, very sure about 3 basic parts of the question paper: the derivations, the numericals, and the conceptual or concept-based questions. Derivation is something that you can prepare well. You have to understand the derivations pretty well. You have to practice them. You have to write them. And unless and until you write them a couple of times, you will not be able to present it well in the examination. Numericals, once again, please have faith on your NCERT. Do all the numericals, be it your solved segment or the unsolved segment in the end of the book. The conceptual problems have to be handled with a lot of care. There are certain problems which are absolutely high order thinking. Don't worry. If you give them a patient reading, you will be definitely able to crack those questions in the exam. So your basic preparation and structure should be divided into 3 parts. First part, definitely your derivations. Part 2, numericals, and part 3 should be your conceptual problems. If you talk about the typology of the question, if you see the blueprint of the question paper on the CBSE site, I'm sure you will get to know the basic division of the percentages. If you talk about the remembering and understanding part, somehow I can say that most of the questions will be quite direct and simple. So in case I ask you that please derive an expression for drift velocity, then certainly it's a basic understanding question. So such type of questions have a weightage of around 38%, which makes it around 27 marks. When you talk about the application-based questions, the applying typology, that has a weightage of around 32%. And marks-wise, it is around 22 marks. So I repeat, 27 marks remembering and understanding, 22 marks applying. And when you move on to the third pedestal of the question paper, which is a little higher order thinking, it has analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Lots of questions may be there where more interpretation skills are required, more analytical skills are required, graphical interpretations may be asked for, and so on. This is around 30%, which makes it exact 21 marks. So if you fairly divide your question paper into 3 parts, then 27 marks for more or less very direct kind of questions, 22 application-based questions, and 21 marks for analysis, evaluation, and creativity or creating kind of questions. I'm sure this will certainly help you understand that what is your forte, where do you need more time, where do you need more time to channelize your energies into. So in case you feel that you are not very, very sound in the application-based questions, please start doing the application-based questions. You should have a fairly good schedule of preparing for all the subjects. I'm sure most of you believe in making a timetable, and accordingly, the time management takes the front seat. Do ensure that you have a lovely timetable made, and not only made, it should be implemented and it should be followed very, very religiously in letter and spirit. Do follow the timetable. Make sure that all the subjects are given good time and good importance. As far as physics goes, definitely your time required in the so-called chapters, which are 14 in number. You have exactly 14 chapters right now in your curriculum, in your CBSE books, NCERT. So please prepare chapter-wise. See which all chapters have got more weightage and start preparing for them. If I may guide you, your chapter number 1, 2, and 3, that is electrostatics complete and electricity, that counts for around 16 marks. When you move on to your magnetism chapters, then 2 units of magnetism and 2 chapters of EMI and AC, it has a weightage of 17 marks. Moving on to the next chapter, that is your electromagnetic waves, optics, that is wave as well as ray optics, that counts for a huge 18 marks. Moving on to modern physics, you have 3 units, dual nature, atoms and nuclei, contributing 12 marks. And definitely the last but not the least, your semiconductors, that counts for 7 marks. Children, if you see that your semiconductors chapter has got very few topics, very few topics right now, but the weightage given to the chapter is around 7 marks. So make sure that you do this chapter very well. Your target should be to score 7 on 7 in this particular chapter. Lesser amount of effort, but with greater number of weightage or marks, you can certainly score better. When you talk about even modern physics, the modern physics for this particular year, the content has been reduced. So focus. 12 marks in modern physics is definitely an extremely easy task to do. When you talk about optics, please ensure that from ray optics, now the reflection has gone away, it is no more there. And when you talk about wave optics, the articles on polarization are not there. That doesn't mean that you don't have to study. Please do study these topics as well. But as far as your CBSE papers are concerned, they are not going to be tested there. If you talk about electromagnetic waves, make sure that you learn well the frequency and the wavelength of all 7 parts of the electromagnetic spectrum. The tables made in NCERT in this particular chapter are really important. Please don't overlook them. Do look at them very carefully. Try to understand, try to remember the basic facts of electromagnetic waves. The chapter looks very easy, but at times you are not able to fare it very well in the examination. The reason is that you don't learn. Please learn the frequency and the wavelength range of all 7 parts of electromagnetic spectrum. Please understand the usage of the 7 parts of EM spectrum. After a long time, displacement current, this particular topic is not a part of the EM waves. Again, I would request you to do it, but be sure that this particular topic will not be tested in the CBSE examination. When you talk about the major chapters like magnetism, electromagnetic induction, and AC, you should have a very high level of confidence of doing all the derivations. All the devices like transformer, AC generator, they must be done very carefully. Practice them well. Make sure that they are very clear. When it comes to drawing the diagrams, your diagrams should be definitely and strictly drawn using a pencil. They should be labeled well, and you should not leave any stone unturned in getting full marks in the diagrams. Diagrams should be very neat, very clean, labeled once again, and when we talk about, say, chapters like optics, all the ray diagrams should be clearly showing the direction of light. The light direction must be marked very clearly in the ray diagrams. Similarly, when you talk about chapter called current electricity, the direction of flow of current should also be marked very clearly. You should have a lot of confidence in understanding the questions on graphs. CBSE will definitely give you some questions on graphs. There are two varieties. Number one, either you are asked to draw a graph, and second, a graph is already given to you and you're supposed to give an interpretation of it. See all the previous year question papers, at least 10 years I will suggest. See the previous 10 years question papers, sample papers, and see the kind of questions which have been asked. Most of the times you will see that the questions are repeated. Once again, when you look at the sample paper of CBSE, the questions, the choices are basically indicative. In the final examination, exactly the same pattern of choices may or may not be followed. So just don't think that exactly this kind of pattern of choices will be there. It is basically suggestive, and CBSE has very clearly written in their sample papers. I'm deeply worried when I see the answer scripts of children that they miss out on SI units. So whenever you're doing a numerical, please make sure that the SI unit of the physical quantity that you have calculated is definitely written. Otherwise, you land up losing half a mark in each unit. So the SI units are extremely important. Make sure that you're very clear about the scalar and vector quantities. You have a couple of vector quantities in your NCERT part 1 in chapter called electrostatics, in chapter that is magnetism, in chapter electricity. There are a lot of physical quantities which are vector. So please don't get confused between the scalar and the vector quantities. I think a beautiful example will be current density, which is defined as current per unit area. And most of the time, children write it as a scalar quantity. So make sure that it's not a scalar, rather it's a vector quantity. There are some very good questions in the CBSE paper where the dependence of one quantity on the other is asked. So please practice those questions well. I was just talking to you about current density. If I may say so again, current density is the current per unit area. So if you look at this formula, you will definitely say that current density seems to be directly proportional to current and inversely proportional to area, but that's not so. That's really misleading. So make sure that you reach to the next step of the formula and you know that J is equal to I upon A is a constant. Further, when you move ahead, you see that the current density is independent of area of cross section. So I'm sure these kind of tricky questions are asked in CBSE. They can mislead you at times, but with a lot of confidence, I'm sure you're going to do it beautifully well in the board examination. So that was one of my major concerns. I was also talking about the chapters that are basically, if you talk about chapters like magnetism and matter, I'm sure it's again a very small and a simple chapter. A lot of articles have been reduced from this chapter also. So whatever is left in this chapter, magnetism and matter, please do it very well. There'll be simple and very direct questions from this particular chapter. I'm sure when you do chapter called electricity, you have lots of numericals. So don't worry. First of all, numericals, the weightage of numericals is around 30%, roughly, I'm saying 30 to 35% in the question papers. Once again, it may or may not be there. It is fluctuating, but roughly between 21 to 24 mark numericals can be there. You have to be very clear about this particular weightage. So even if there are numericals worth 24, 25 marks, then other 45 marks are for derivations and other concept-based questions. As I was telling you, some questions on SI units are also asked. So be firm, be ready, prepare the SI units really well. When you see your question paper, I'm sure you are doing your pre-boards also. Some schools have started conducting the pre-boards. Some schools may be conducting the pre-boards within a very short span next month. Do take your pre-boards religiously. Write it very honestly, the 3-hour paper, and the 15 minutes that are given to you as a reading time, they should be very, very judiciously used. Use those 15 minutes to look at 1-mark questions, which are around 14 in number. There are certain questions which may have choices. Please make sure that you make up your mind for doing these kind of questions. So you will use this particular time for deciding whether I should do the first part or the second part. So your preparation for the board examination will depend a lot on how well you have taken your practice papers. Whatever the resource may be for the practice papers, don't hesitate. Please write. Please do lots of question papers. Send it across to your teachers, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy assessing it and returning it to you with their comments. So once again, as I told you earlier, have faith in your teachers. They will be definitely the most wonderful people around, and they will guide you to the best of their abilities so that you can perform really well. When you start writing your question paper, I'm sure you can also decide as to which particular segment you want to perform or write first. So just don't worry. Just don't worry. Whichever segment you are comfortable with, just start performing. Just start writing that particular segment. In case you are really comfortable with the 5-mark questions, where there are 3 questions and all 3 questions have internal choices, absolutely good to go. Don't worry. You can then switch over to your 3-mark segment. You can then switch over to your 2-mark segment, and so on. Although doing the question paper in sequence is not a bad idea at all, but it really depends a lot on your own comfort and your own mental state. So just not worry. Write the question numbers very carefully. Don't miss out a question number and start doing. Make sure that the presentation of your paper is very good. Presentation will definitely make a lot of difference. I'm sure with my small little tips, our students are going to do very well. I thank you, CREDENT TV, once again for giving me this opportunity to come and speak with my students and fellow colleagues. I would like to thank my principal, Ma'am Rita Taneja, for giving me this opportunity to speak with my children, to give some tips to perform well in the CBSE examination. I'm sure the children will do extremely well. All the best. God bless you. Thank you so much.